Alright guys, TacticalRab here, and today I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome back to Valorant news, and a massive day in the Valorant world yesterday as all the teams going to Champions in Istanbul have been confirmed, from NA, from South America, from East Asia, and also from EMEA. 100 Thieves win North America's LCQ in dominant fashion. There's plenty of reaction to that one, so much to dive into today. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Firstly, wanted to mention this from Bleed Esports, of course, failing to qualify through their respective LCQ. They're effectively releasing their entire roster. They will come again. They've got a fair bit of money to spend, but yeah, not going to be spent on these players, it seems. Whether they'll get into franchising, that also is a question that remains to be seen. This to mention as well, because T1 are a big organization in question right now. Will they get into the NA kind of franchise league as they expect to and they want to, or will they have to play in the Korean league? They seem to be preparing for that, of course, because we saw the other day they brought Ban into the team alongside a couple of other Korean counterparts they have on that roster, and as he mentions here, he can speak both English and Korean, and even Steel, the current IGL, is now on the Duolingo grinding out Korean language, I suppose. So it does seem like a possibility that I mean, yes, look, if they don't get into the NA LCQ, Steel and the team, maybe they won't have Steel, who knows what they're going to decide to do, will probably move to Korea and then compete in the kind of APAC franchising league, which may be getting more and more likely by the day. Let's talk about the various LCQs, and as expected, it was EDG, Edward Gaming. Edward is pretty damn good at gaming. They qualified in pretty dominant fashion for the LCQ, or for the champions, right? They dominated their LCQ. Like, the Chinese team comes through and they're delivering the damage, right? It's honestly pretty impressive because, like, I mean, China, it really hasn't taken off. I'm not even sure it's, like, allowed properly in China. It's a bit of a strange situation there, like the Valorant situation in the Chinese scene, but still kind of out of nowhere. It's almost like a Paper X V2 type team. Like, they play in an incredibly entertaining way with unbelievable raw mechanical skill, and they just dominated their entire LCQ, to be honest. We'll have a look at the results here in a second of what this means for the entirety of champions. But yeah, ADG, I don't even think they lost a map in the whole LCQ, which is kind of crazy. And Team Liquid versus M3C, they were playing, and honestly, like, we saw the other day the Phoenix possibility that babybay tried to pull out, and Scream was using him to fantastic effect. Like, Scream was by far the MVP of the series. It was actually kind of absurd. In fairness, Yampy played well as well, but I mean, Scream just dominated from start to finish here, especially, well, after game one. I think M3C maybe won game one here. This was the deciding best of 5 of who would qualify through EMEA. Team Liquid versus M3C. Liquid, of course, just about lost that series the other day, 2-1 to M3C on that nail biter icebox, but this time Liquid come back. They managed to take this ascent as well, and they close out the series in a 3-1 fashion. Liquid take it. I mean, look at these numbers here from Scrim. Plus 31. This guy was out of control, to be honest, in the final few maps of the series. We can look at that ascent, actually. 26 and 11, and then on Breeze, 13 to 8. Scrim went 29 and 13. So he completely popped off. Shados did his best, but once again for this M3C team that's now without an organization, when it comes down to a qualification decider series to go to a LAN event, they fail to deliver, right? It's happened earlier this season as well in many matches where if they'd have won it, they'd have pretty much guaranteed themselves going to potentially many different LAN environments. And even at the LCQ this year, one series away from qualifying for Masters, or for Champions, sorry, they failed to deliver, right? So yes, difficult time for M3C. What organization might pick them up? Who knows? But still, who knows if that team will even be together. But again, Liquid and Furia, to be fair, qualified again through the LCQs. A credit where it's due for Team Liquid. Like, impressive stuff, honestly, from them as an organization. They haven't looked that good the last few months, but when it mattered, they really turned up here and won the entirety of this LCQ. This is what happened then on the Furia side of things in South America. Crew already qualified, we looked at yesterday. Furia took down TBK Esports 3-0 to become the second team that qualified, so good to see for them. At Furia, Crew Esports, they are through to Champions as well, as we shall see. And this was the EMEA bracket, where Team Liquid come on top after a BBL victory, Na'Vi victory, lost to M3C, and then got the job done once again in the lower finals, and then the grand finals. Impressive run from them, no doubt. Let's talk then about what happened in North America, because this was potentially going to be a banger series, right? The Guard versus 100T. I predicted 100T to win. I thought they had more depth over the 5 maps, but in fairness, the Guard got to ban out 2 of the maps that they thought 100 Thieves were best at, right? And we'll see what Asuna said on that here in a second. This I thought was kind of crazy, actually, that their recent results were absolutely identical in terms of which teams they played and how they delivered, right? And even in recent times, they've kind of gone back and forth. So on paper, this was an incredibly close head-to-head game, but I did kind of wonder whether the Guard would just not quite be as well prepared as 100 Thieves were, and it did seem to be the case. And even individually, they just completely popped off, right? This series, honestly, was not particularly close. It was entertaining, don't get me wrong, but it was not particularly close. 100 Thieves, like, I've just demolished them. Derek was making plays. Derek and Bang again, right? I thought maybe one of these guys has got to slow down down at some point, because Bang had such a crazy series in their most recent game up against FaZe. I was like, surely there's no way he can deliver the goods again. But that's exactly what he does. Asuna delivered. Like, they win game 1 without too much issue. Will as well turned up as well on the operator. Nice little 3k right here. Really just, spelt the end to any aggression that they had over on the Fracture. That was not particularly close. And up 2-0. Then finally, the final game here on Haven was more of a contest, to be honest. The guard at this point up 5-4. But I mean, still, Stella came up massive with the play. Barely any HP, gets the defuse in. And that was pretty crucial as well for setting them up nicely into their second side. And honestly, their defense was pretty good, 100 Thieves, don't get me wrong, especially on the first couple of maps of the series. Don't know how Trent didn't win that one, right? That's pretty tough. That's why I use the Vandal right there, to be honest, or why the Vandal can be better in certain situations. But I mean, yeah, 100 Thieves, their offense was just so well refined. That's, to me, what was most impressive, because I'm sure that's really where they've been drilled very nicely by Sean Gares, like in what sort of offensive strats to run, how to react to what their opponents are doing. And this is where a timeout comes through for 100T, and at this point you kind of know it's GG, when it's 12-9. The Sean Gares timeout, he gives them the strat, and they just deliver the goods and win the series. I mean, Stella is the IGL, dropping a top frag in the final map of the series. It was incredibly impressive. And yeah, 100 Thieves just dominated. I mean, what was their run of maps at the end of the tournament, right? I mean, they at least 3-0'd FaZe and then 3-0'd the guard back-to-back. Like, that's incredibly impressive from them as an organization and as a team. I've talked about for quite some time that I was incredibly happy with the way that they were kind of treating their situation, right? It's building from scratch again, building up an entirely new team of general managers, coaching staff, Sean Gares, DDK, bringing them in, building a new roster from scratch effectively that everyone said, or a lot of people said, isn't going to be particularly good. I think a lot of people had pretty high hopes for this team. They've obviously built a squad that can deliver the goods, and they're playing at an unbelievable level. They picked up some good rookies. Bang was playing fantastic, and well, they're going to go to champions, right? Super exciting stuff under Thieves, not just for the team, but also for the organization. They've been catching so many W's the last couple of weeks. They just won the Call of Duty World Championship last weekends as LA Thieves, and now they're kind of their team as 100 Thieves are winning the NA LCQ and qualifying for champions. And how far can they go at champs, right? I mean, playing like this, like the guard, a good team, don't get me wrong. They didn't play great in the series, but to 3-0 FaZe and the guard back-to-back is no mean feat at all. They even took down Sentinels before that, of course. Sentinels seemed like a pretty decent team in hindsight, given the teams that they lost to. And there's some of the reaction, right? As FNS says, Bang, most improved player this year for me. Like, I think honestly might be no doubt about that. We saw some clips coming out, I think, from babybay. He was like, look, Bang isn't really all that special. This guy doesn't really have much future. And FNS is now saying, well, look, this guy might be most improved because he was absolutely disgusting. Even this some FNS thought was kind of funny, really. I still think they should cut that whole roster. The 100 Thieves classic and making the roster changes. They made so many. They finally said, okay, look, let's get our act together here and actually focus on building a team from the ground up, not keep making changes when things don't work out. They've done exactly that. They've got the philosophy right, and they've delivered the goods. Zelsis and Sentinels obviously weren't so happy and pretty frustrated about it, and understandably so, but it should have been us, he says, saying that, look, they honestly could have made it through. They probably should have beaten the guard in the first rounds. Like, they probably would have won that icebox if they hadn't had the whole Shroud, Viper, planting situation shenanigans that went down. They then nearly beat 100 Thieves in the losers bracket, right? It was a really close series there where they kind of made the fake comeback, and then 100T eventually closed out, so I believe 13-11 on the final map, right? And that seemingly was the catalyst, right? You beat Sentinels, you go on to make the grand finals of the tournament, hammered to both of the teams that Sentinels lost to. So frustrating, I'm sure, for them. It's seeing that what could have been beating the guard, beating 100 Thieves, could have been a very different tournament for Sentinels, but they end up losing to the two teams that made the grand finals and got so close to beating 100T that it turned out to be a pretty dominant force. Of course, commiserations to the guard, they got so close. Still, I'm pretty sure they'll think they should have qualified just earlier this season. All they had to do was have a decent stage 2, and they would have been there already guaranteed to champions instead of xNed. Turns out they're not going to be there. What does this mean for them next season in terms of franchising? That's the thing Nets does not know. He says, like, it stings. GG's 100T, we didn't accomplish our goal. But and also saying that next season, hopefully he will be returning as a pro player. But what does the future hold, right? Who actually knows? Because the guard might not get a spot in franchising. And even if they do, what will they do with this team? Will they keep it? Will they upgrade? Like, I reckon any team that gets into franchising that doesn't literally win champions will probably consider a move, because there's going to be so many big name free agents out there. So who knows if Net's going to be on the guard, if guard are even going to be in franchising. There's big questions remaining, but commiserations to those guys, of course. And yeah, this is some of the reaction here from 100 Thieves within the camp, and who can blame them? Because yeah, what a great performance. This also some kind of strong statements here from 100 Thieves, or from Asuna especially, which I thought was pretty spicy and exciting, really, going into, well, champions itself. As he says, us beating them 3-0 and then banning our two best maps, or what they think are our two best maps, is kind of a statement, right? So they effectively, the guard got a veto advantage. They got to decide which maps were going to get removed from the series. They decided to take out Breeze, they took out Bind as well. well, and then they still 3-0'd them on the other maps, right? So that probably shows the strength and depth of the map pool that 100 Thieves actually have here, and they're probably thinking going into Champions, well, damn, if our Breeze and Bind are that good that, you know, the guard are going to remove them against us, and then we still 3-0 on the other maps in pretty comfortable fashion, like, that's a pretty scary sign for the opposition. These were, of course, the maps 5, or the 5 maps, and of course, it only went to 3 of them because Icebox was 13-7, Fracture was 13-6, Haven was 13-9, like, this was not even close. Derek, Asuna, Stella, Will, Bang, I mean, not quite the perfect opposition or composition there we'd like to see, but yeah, Bang honestly didn't have to do that much in this series. He was kind of just delivering the goods slowly but surely. Derek, Asuna, again, they turned up big time, and that's the thing, they have so many players here that can pop off, including their IGL, of course, in Stella, that was making plays as well. And just to mention, there's some numbers actually before we close out the video, looking at the champions teams from the kind of, well, I mean, look at these ranks, right? Pistol round win, 1 player advantage, 1 player disadvantage, clutch percentage, all this type of stuff. Like, I mean, yeah, Derek's clutches, this is actually absurd. Derek had 18 clutches. He was second only to FaZe. There was only one team that had more clutches than Derek had as an individual, which was FaZe at 19. So what is even that about? That's just kind of crazy to think about. But I mean, yeah, Derek was delivering again, and their numbers pretty much in terms of every stat you want to be good at were first across the board in the LCQ. That then leaves these teams going to Champions. 16 teams now confirmed. NA, of course, OpTic, set 100 Thieves, the LCQ team. Fnatic, FPX, Team Liquid, the LCQ team from EMEA. Japan is Zeta, Korea is DRX, and then, of course, they had the East Asian LCQ, where there was no Japanese or Korean additional team qualifying, no Northeptian, no Onslayers or whatever. It was EDG qualifying as well. Edward Gaming, the Chinese team, they're going to be there. That's super exciting. APAC then, Boom Esports qualified, Xerxia, PaperX, of course, as well. Furia and Crew, as we saw from South America. Leviathan from Latin America. Loud from Brazil. I think still people are going to question why there's, you know, 4 teams from that region, but only 3 from NA and EMEA, but it is what it is. These are the 16 teams. Champions is not that far away. Beginning, I believe, in 2 weeks' time on August the 31st, but very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new as always. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.